Americans are gloomier about jobs than at any point since the Great Recession. A federal judge blocked the FTC's probe into media matters, calling it a First Amendment violation and warning of authoritarian tactics. The Bush family is plotting a political comeback, with Jonathan Bush eyeing the governor's mansion in Maine. Donald Trump leaves his summit with Vladimir Putin empty-handed, while Putin walks away looking stronger than ever. And if you hate flossing, dentists say there are better tools, and skipping them could harm more than your smile. All that and more right now. Welcome to Filtered with TJ Walker. Hi, thanks for joining me today. Americans haven't been this worried about jobs since the Great Recession. According to the University of Michigan's latest consumer survey, 62% of people now believe unemployment will get worse in the year ahead. That's pessimism on par with 2008, even though today's economy looks very different. The anxiety comes after President Trump announced steep new tariffs on foreign goods, raising fears of job losses. But so far, the data hasn't caught up to the worry. The unemployment rate in July was just 4.2%, still historically low. Hiring has cooled, but layoffs remain rare, and fewer people are filing for unemployment than in mid-2021. Jean Su, the director of the University of Michigan survey, summed it up this way. Consumers are bracing for an increase in inflation to come. Moreover, they are also concerned that labor markets will weaken. The bottom line, people feel gloomy. The numbers don't disagree. Okay, so what's really going on here? What's the real message here? Americans are starting to freak out about the economy. It's true. Employment hasn't fallen down in the dumps. Inflation isn't sky high yet. But Americans are not dummies. When every single economist, left, right, center, says Trump's whole method of sending tariffs just doesn't work. It's a massive tax increase. The idea of throwing many of our best workers out of the country, deporting them, and jobs going unfilled is causing havoc with supply chains. Sooner or later, it's going to catch up. And that's the bottom line. So let's dig a little deeper. On the one hand, I do think it's rational for people to be concerned about the economy and to feel a little gloomy. On the other hand, let's step back for a minute and look at things in historical perspective. There's never been a better time to be alive in America, in my opinion. Yeah, there's things going on in this regime I don't like, but as far as economic opportunity, I'm going to get some flack for this, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If you're unemployed, now you're not trying too hard. I understand if you have a degree in mechanical engineering and you want a job in mechanical engineering and you can't get a job that you want, you're going to feel frustrated. But you can work for Uber. You can work for Uber Eats. You can create an app. There's a million things you could do that you couldn't do when I was 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. The economy now has this elasticity to it because it's never been easier to start your own business, to be a part of the gig economy. I understand the gig economy isn't a permanent solution for everyone. Certainly, if you have a family to feed, a mortgage, and you're used to making $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year, driving Uber is pretty thin gruel. I understand that. But it's a very different time than most of history in capitalism, when you can have long bouts of unemployment and zero income. These days, it's never been easier to market some service you have. Babysitting, cleaning chimneys. You can create a website for nothing. You can create a Facebook page for nothing. Start selling, cleaning boats. I know friends of mine who were immigrants, frankly, illegal immigrants in Miami back in the day, when they just started putting little slips of paper on people's boats saying, hey, I'll clean your boat. They built a big business, started having other people work for them, made a six-figure income. They didn't speak English. They were not legal citizens, they made it work. And that was pre-internet. That was back in the day of just putting little strips of paper on boats to clean. Now, I'm not going to be a phony for you. I don't want to clean boats, but I'm also not unemployed. So my challenge to you is, if you're feeling unemployed, let's get a little, or feeling gloomy about the economy, let's get a little perspective. Okay. Unemployment in July was 4.2%. That's about as close to what economists consider full employment as possible. And inflation is showing some signs of creeping up, but it's certainly not anything like what I saw as a kid in the 1970s. It's nowhere near what we saw just 3-4 years ago. And it's certainly a lot better than what most of Europe saw during the pandemic. So, look, I'm as pessimistic as anyone about the abilities of this current administration and their ability to screw up the economy. But they can't screw it up for everyone all at the same time. They can't take away every single job opportunity. They can certainly wreak havoc if you're a big company and you don't get down on bended knee or give Trump a bribe. I understand that. But the idea that you and your own local economy can't put together some kind of business, some kind of service. I mean, I have family members during the pandemic just started cooking for people, just spread through word of mouth on their own Facebook page. I'll come to your house, cook you a nice meal, or bring you a nice meal, drop it off during the pandemic, and just leave it at the front door. You can be resourceful if you decide that you don't necessarily deserve a job. You may want a job. We all want jobs. But if you decide it's up to you to earn income, I do believe you can do it absent major psychological, physical disadvantages that make it impossible for you to do so. I understand some people simply are not in a situation where they can be a part of the employment market, but we're not talking about them. If you're not looking for a job, then you are by definition not unemployed. You're only unemployed if you're actively looking for a job. And I think the mental switch that many people need to turn on is, ultimately, you want income. You want to use your talents, your abilities to bring in an income for yourself, to stretch yourself, be useful, and make money. That may or may not include working for one employer. It may or may not involve starting your own business. It may or may not be a freelancer or just starting your own company. It's never been easier to do that. I'm not saying it's easy to become a profitable, viable, big company or to become wildly successful, but to start something where you can make more money than what it costs to run the business has never been easier. I mean, I remember back in the day, sorry to sound like an old timer, but a little perspective is needed. Just to start a business, people felt like you had to have an office and you had to have a phone and you had to have an administrative assistant and letterhead, all these things no one cares about anymore, because all the marketplace cares about is, can you deliver something of value to me? And if it's coming and cleaning my house or cleaning the leaves out of a gutter, no one cares how big your office is or how big your truck is if you have the tools you need to get it done. If you can market someone else's website, no one cares that you're living in your mother's basement in Lithuania. They just don't. So, look, I share some of the pessimism just because I think America has the worst leadership it has ever had in the history of the country. But that doesn't mean you and I can't still thrive. And this is really where we get to sort of the personal development part of this show. This is filtered with TJ Walker. We look at the top, typically 5 stories of the day, and filter it through the lens of communication skills and personal development skills. And you can look back to the Stoics, you can look back to Ben Franklin, you can look back to all sorts of philosophers throughout history. The message is often the same, which is the world around you is filled with things you can't change. all you can focus on is what you can control. And today, it's never been easier to control your own means of production. Ben Franklin had to have some help with family getting that first printing press going. You and I have a printing press right now. It's called the internet. If you have a cell phone, you have a printing press. You have a TV studio. You have a radio studio. You have a film production studio. We can't all become media moguls, but we can use these tools to market whatever other service we have. So let's keep that in check when it comes to the gloom and doom. Sometimes let's not go overboard. A federal judge has lost federal investigating media matters, an organization near and dear to my heart. This is a liberal watchdog group that has repeatedly criticized Elon Musk's platform X. Judge Sparkle Sukanan called the probe a straightforward First Amendment violation and a retaliatory act. She warned, quote, "It should alarm all Americans when the government retaliates against individuals or organizations for engaging in constitutionally protected public debate." The FTC, led by Trump appointee Andrew Ferguson, claiming it was examining whether Media Matters colluded with other advocacy groups to squeeze advertisers away from X. But critics say this was political payback, part of a broader pattern of targeting left-leaning groups like Act Blue and prominent law firms. Around the world, authoritarian governments often begin by using regulatory or financial investigations to intimidate political opponents. Many legal scholars argue this ruling shows the U.S. is not immune to that trend. For now, the court has put a stop to it, though appeals are expected. Okay, so what's the real message here? It's a temporary reprieve for Media Matter because there's still a couple of sane judges left in the world. But this administration is trying to snuff out dissenting voices like Media Matters. For having the temerity of pointing out inconsistencies, flaws, illogic, and bad policy, Media Matters is being punished. And this is what authoritarian regimes do. This is what they do in Hungary. This is what they do in Turkey. This is what they did in the last century in Italy and in Germany. And it is despicable if you actually believe in democracy. Okay, let's dig a little deeper here. You know, it's nice that a federal judge did the right thing here, but I fear that it's a small little piece of the puzzle. The administration is just going to appeal, and we are getting dangerously close to the point, I believe, where anyone who is a prominent non-Trump supporter in public life, whether they are a journalist, whether they are a political leader, whether they're a candidate, whether they're a Democratic member of Congress, is going to be detained. Initially, they will be investigated, then detained, then imprisoned, and then finally, I think we're going to see them simply disappear. You may say, well, TJ, you're being extreme here. This is America. Well, not America anymore when Donald Trump can essentially do whatever he wants and get away with it. And when you have a United States Congress where the Republicans are in charge for now, and every single Republican senator and member of Congress is afraid to stand up to Trump for fear of death threats, for fear of being primaried, for fear of that tweet attacking them so that people know where their children go to school. We have conditions that are ripe for a democracy melting into an authoritarian regime. And that is exactly what we are seeing right here. One little good bit of news today with this federal judge, but with Trump getting to appoint more and more federal judges every day, and his number one criteria is no longer does the Federalist Society give them a stamp of approval that they will do original intent stuff, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, give us things that Republicans like. That's not good enough anymore. Trump has a new litmus test, and that is, will you be my butler? That is his criteria for being a judge. And certainly we're going to see that for the next Supreme Court opening, if one happens during his term, which is highly likely, given the advancing age of a lot of Supreme Court members. And there's constantly a stream of new federal judgeships that open up that the current administration gets to replace. And again, we are seeing what was a perversion of justice, this idea that the Federalist Society could pick people who claim they had a coherent judicial philosophy. And sometimes it was coherent, but basically it was we're going to give you any decision and say that the founding fathers wanted whatever the current political position is of the Republican Party. Now we've gone much further extreme, where Trump says that's no longer good enough. I only want judges who will act as if they were my personal attorney on my payroll. That's the new criteria. That's what thugocracies, autocracies, dictatorships have. And sadly, that's what we have now and are increasingly going in this direction in the United States. Imagine having a communication coach who never sleeps. Meet your new secret weapon, the TJ Walker AI clone. Go to tjwalker.ai and start getting custom coaching 24/7. No scheduling, no hourly fees. I've trained presidents, prime ministers, and Fortune 500 CEOs. But the same exact communication I've delivered to world leaders is now available to you online, anytime at MediaTrainingWorldwide.com. Whether you're speaking on camera, pitching a client, or handling a crisis, you need these tools. These aren't fluffy motivational videos. They're practical, battle-tested techniques to help you speak clearly, competently, and persuasively. Go to MediaTrainingWorldwide.com and take your communication to the next level. Got feedback or a question for me? I actually read them, and if you send one, I'll send you a free mini course as a thank you. Just head to tjwalker.com/feedback. Ever wish you could just ask me your question live? Now you can. Every week I go live with members only. On YouTube, it's called TJ Live. I review pitches, fix presentations, and answer your questions on the spot. It's interactive, personal, and hands-on. If you want real-time coaching in a small group setting, go to tjwalker.com/live and become a member. This isn't passive content. It's a two-way conversation. Want to make sure we stay connected even if YouTube deletes me again? Join my newsletter at substack.com/@TJWalkerSuccess. It's free, fast, and packed with exclusive insights. Welcome back. This is Filtered with TJ Walker. So happy you could join me today. On Filtered, we're a little bit different from many news programs and other programs on YouTube and podcast. Here's what we try to do. We look at the top 5 stories of the day, top business stories, technology stories, and culture stories, and analyze them through the filter of communication skills and personal development, all with the goal of helping you, improving you, making you more successful in your personal life and your professional life. So that's what we're all about. We're in kind of a soft launch right now. We'll be launching officially September 2nd, 2025. So be sure to mark your calendars for that. Let's move on now to story 3. The Bush family may not be finished in politics after all. Jonathan Bush, cousin of former President George W. Bush, is weighing a run for governor of Maine. With Governor Janet Mills set to retire, the seat will be open in 2026. And Jonathan Bush has already formed an exploratory committee and launched a nonprofit focused on housing and the economy. According to Newsweek, George W. Bush and Jeb Bush recently hosted a fundraiser for him in Kennebunkport. Political analysts say Maine could offer an opening. Democrats have the edge, but the state values independence and has a tradition of electing moderates like Senator Susan Collins. Still, the GOP has changed. Trump style dominates, while Bush style conservatism has faded. Colby College professor Dan Shea said Republicans in Maine are roughly divided between traditional Bush voters and Trump style Republicans. Whether nostalgia for the Bush years can outweigh Trump's grip on the GOP remains to be seen. Okay, so what's the real message here? A Bush is running for statewide office somewhere in America, in this case, Maine. I never thought I'd say, thank goodness the Bushes have returned. But after the last decade of Trump dominance, yes, I'm ready to say, thank goodness some Republicans who actually have some level of sanity might try to gain office once again. So this is good news for America. Let's dig a little deeper. Now, the Bushes, very few people say, wow, I really wish we could go back to the era of George W. Bush running things, his swagger, weapons of mass destruction, Saudi Arabia funding a war blowing up the Twin Towers so we invade other countries unrelated to Saudi. Not many people say, let's really go back to those days. But when you look at what this current administration does, no matter how many things the Bush administration did that Democrats, moderates, centrists, liberals, progressives didn't like, no one really thought that George Bush was plotting an authoritarian dictatorship takeover. No one really thought he was cackling every day, saying, here's the Constitution, let's tear it up and let me do whatever I want. No one really thought that about him. No one really thought that if he had clearly lost the Electoral College in 2004, that he would have stayed in office or stormed the Capitol or formed an insurrection, because that just wasn't a part of his fiber. He was a part of a tradition, a Republican Party tradition that actually bought into the whole idea of democracy. Quaint, I know. So it's going to be interesting to see, A, if this Bush does actually run, B, if the voters of Maine support him. Because as I mentioned in the news feed there, about half the Republican voters in Maine like Trump and like Trump-style politicians, but they are different in that they have continually elected Senator Susan Collins, who always tells everybody how independent she is, how moderate she is, and she is on some issues. But by and large, she always caves in and gives Donald Trump whatever he wants and provides that quite often final decisive vote to give Trump whatever he wants. It's going to be interesting to see, how does this Bush actually run? Now, there's no love lost between the Bushes and the Trumps. By all accounts, Jeb Bush and George Bush, from every conversation people have heard them talking about on background and off the record, they can't stand Trump, which isn't unusual at all. Most prominent Republicans in America do utterly detest Donald Trump as a human being and his politics. So where does this go? I can't say I would necessarily vote for this Bush, but I applaud the Republicans not just rolling over and playing dead. I applaud anyone in the Republican Party who is willing to at least appear to be standing up to this thug we have that's currently, I would say, is not head of the Republican Party. He's head of a Trump cult. I would argue and put forth the premise that the Republican Party died a while back. So this would not be a new direction of the Republican Party. This would be recreating it and essentially starting something new again, because it has basically died. So we'll see. We'll be following this closely, because the Bush brand, extraordinarily different from the Trump brand. And I have no doubt whatsoever that if this Bush does run, Trump is going to find somebody who will do his bidding somebody who he can endorse, someone who will give him an opportunity to regularly needle and put out nasty tweets about a Bush family member. So it's going to get ugly, folks, as it is in many political campaigns. Hey, if you're enjoying this kind of take and want to hear more stories filtered through the lens of communication, make sure you're following the show, whether you're watching or listening. New episodes drop every single day. And if there's a little notification option where you are now, go ahead and turn it on. It helps you stay in the loop. Vladimir Putin walked away from his summit with Donald Trump without offering a ceasefire, without concessions on Ukraine, without giving up really a thing, and yet he looked like the victor. According to The Telegraph, the Russian leader was showered with red carpets, military flyovers, even a ride with Trump in the presidential limousine. It was his first visit to U.S. soil in a decade, and Putin used it to remind the world that Russia was back at the top table of global politics. Trump, meanwhile, delivered little more than flattery. He even referred to Putin as the boss, a comment that sent ripples through the press corps. While Russian bombs were killing civilians in Ukraine, Trump offered smiles and symbolism. Critics say the sight of American soldiers kneeling to secure a red carpet for Putin was a humiliating moment, one that made the U.S. president look weak and deferential to a man widely considered a war criminal. Okay, so what's the real message here? The more this summit in not Russia, although Trump thinks it was in Russia, but in Alaska, the more we think about this and settle it, the more humiliating it is to America. What Trump did, elevating Putin, making him look like this grand world leader, is utterly despicable. Putin is a war criminal. If you happen to believe in democracy, sovereignty, concepts like Europe controlling its own destiny, this was a finger in the eye of every core concept of democracy and legitimacy in the United States. It looks like it's becoming a pariah nation because of it. Let's dig a little deeper. Of course, I would like to see the war end in the Ukraine, but what I don't want to see, and what no one in Europe wants to see, is Trump meddling to the point where he is giving Russia a big victory, letting them have land, letting them seem like they won, and it's rewarding thuggery. It's rewarding brutality. It's awarding war criminality. And that is what Trump has done by treating this person who should be an international pariah, who is outside of the United States, Vladimir Putin, as if he's this just normalized leader. I mean, it's amazing how many of the old Soviet gang, just seeing them flaunt the old CCCP, USSR sweatshirts by his team. It's really just thumbing their nose at America. And that's really what this is about. And Putin's been pretty upfront about it. He resents the idea that the Soviet Union doesn't still exist, isn't still seen as a world power. And this is sort of a last ditch effort at trying to be big again. And it's also just bizarre in that Russia still is big geographically. It's 11 time zones. But you know what isn't big? Russia's economy. You know, they've had 1 million people die in this idiotic war. But meanwhile, a country this big, this expansive, has the economy of Italy. It's really not a very big place anymore. And Trump, again, further humiliates himself by saying, oh, Russia's the number 2 power. They're not a number 2 power. They may have a bunch of old, dusty warheads around that may still work. But the idea of Russia having true influence in the world, being a meaningful player, when all they can do is conduct war criminality, it's utterly, utterly bizarre. And it's a black mark on the increasingly dark, dark reputation the United States has. More in a moment. Filtered is brought to you by the following. You don't need a new degree. You don't need another expensive coach. You need the right communication habits, and I'll teach them to you in just a few minutes a day. At MediaTrainingWorldwide.com, I've created the most comprehensive library of online communication and personal development courses anywhere. You'll learn public speaking, media training, persuasion, executive presence, and more. These are the same methods I've taught to world leaders, but now they're affordable and accessible to everyone. You can start for free and upgrade anytime. Go now to MediaTrainingWorldwide.com. Confidence isn't a personality trait, it's a skill, and it's trainable. Most people can't afford a full-time coach, and even if you could, good luck finding one who's available when you need them. That's why I created the TJ Walker AI clone. It's built on my 40-plus years of real-world coaching and training. You get my exact advice, style, and frameworks instantly. Ask it how to handle a tough question, get feedback on your elevator pitch, rehearse your next big talk. This is the next generation of communication coaching. It's smarter than an app, more personal than a course, and always ready. Start using it today at tjwalker.ai. You'll wonder how you ever did without it. Want to become a better speaker, leader, or communicator? Start with the TJ Walker Success Library. It's 5 of my most practical books, covering everything from public speaking to media interviews and persuasive messaging, all for only $9.95. I've trained presidents and Fortune 500 CEOs, and now you can get the same wisdom in a fast, affordable format. Go to tjwalker.com/books and download your copies instantly. For decades, the advice was simple: brush and floss. But according to the New York Times, that may no longer be enough or even necessarily the best approach. Lancet Van Gilder, president of the American Dental Hygienists Association, says she doesn't floss at all. Instead, she uses interdental brushes, tiny scrubbers with nylon or rubber bristles. Floss is boss was the old mantra, she said, but it doesn't work anymore, at least for most people, because they won't do it. Research backs her up. A 2018 review of 22 clinical trials found interdental brushes were more effective than floss at reducing gum inflammation. Meanwhile, other studies show that combining flossing with a water flosser can significantly cut plaque and bleeding gums, often more than flossing alone. The American Dental Association now says the best method is whatever you'll actually do regularly, whether floss, brushes, picks, or a water flosser. The stakes go beyond cavities. It's not just about appearance. Gum disease is linked to heart disease, diabetes, dementia, believe it or not, and even pregnancy complications. Brushing alone clears only half the plaque. Skip the in-between cleaning and you're risking much more than your smile. Okay, what's the real message here? People underestimate how important their dental health is. You think you don't have time to floss or do some other deep cleaning in your teeth on a regular basis? You could be cutting years off your life. It is that serious. So you got to floss, water pick, use one of these brushes. You got to do something to take care of your teeth. Let's dig a little deeper here. Confession: I did not take care of my teeth as well as I should have earlier in my career. I didn't have health insurance. I was struggling. It was easy to put off going to the dentist. And then one day, brushing my teeth, half my back molar broke in half. A horrible thing, and pretty embarrassing going to the dentist. Like, yeah, you had a cavity so long, your tooth just rotted and it broke in half. Well, that was a huge wake-up call for me. Ever since that day, and that was probably 19 years ago, I've flossed every day. Additionally, I use a water pick virtually every day and gargle and brush my teeth and tongue scrape because I want to protect my health. Now, I was one of these kids. I was lucky as a kid, had straight teeth, good teeth, and then I had an incident in 10th grade in gym class. I got knocked over, broke my front tooth, had to get a root canal, fake tooth. The color was not quite right. Then I would grind my teeth. My teeth wore down. So I went from someone who had literally perfect teeth as a kid to teeth that were a little, bonding here, a little bit of a veneer there. It was kind of messy. And then I did get not caps. I got veneers and caps on all my teeth about 20 years ago. In retrospect, I didn't quite get the color right. They're a little too white, and they can jump out as fakey to people sometimes. But my gums are in good shape because I do take it seriously. And this is, look, there's all sorts of aspects of health where you could say, well, you need money for this surgery, and we have an unfair system in America where only the wealthy have great health care. That's true in a lot of things, but it costs almost nothing to floss your teeth. And as this story points out, there are these interdental brushes that you push it in between your teeth to really clean out the gunk. That's my word, not the scientific word, between your teeth. And that is going to make you have not just healthier gums and a better looking smile. Not that there's anything wrong with aspiring to have a better smile, but it's going to dramatically decrease the chances of getting other diseases. According to this, even dementia is increased with bad oral health. So this show is really about how to take the news and improve yourself. And sometimes it takes a reminder on a regular basis to do things. Unfortunately for me, the reminder was my tooth breaking in half, destroying what should have been a permanent structure. I hope it doesn't take that for you. So we all get reminders every couple of months. We see some story, floss more. Yeah. But we get daily reminders to pour sugar on our teeth and rot our teeth. It is noticeable around the world in cultures, indigenous cultures, where people still, and there are not many of them left, where people don't eat processed sugar, they have virtually no tooth decay. And when you look at archaeologists finding mummies quite often, they're amazed at, here's someone died 10,000 years ago, no tooth decay, because they didn't have processed sugar on their food. So we get these daily reminders: drink more Coke, drink more Pepsi, drink more Gatorade, more and more sugar on our teeth. And yet we only see a story like this popping up every once in a while, reminding us, hey, you need to floss. You need to brush too. So that's why I want to put a spotlight on this and help even things out so that we get a little more in the right proportion of things, of messages coming to our brain. I know you've heard you should floss. Maybe you haven't heard that these interdental brushes are good. I have used them before. I didn't particularly like them. I don't know if I like flossing, but it's just something I do every day. All of us do certain things every day. You might not enjoy it. It's just the price you pay for a modicum level of health or fitting into society. Whether it's, some people shave, or you maybe shave once a week if you have a neatly trimmed beard. You put on clothes, even if it's a hot day. You do some form of exercise. We all do all sorts of things, not because they're fun, but because you just got to do it. And doing something to take care of your gums and your teeth is absolutely essential. Now, we don't have to go out and be vain like me and get veneers and caps and things like that, but you do have to live with your own gums and your teeth the rest of your life. And I'm hoping that you can do what it takes to make yourself healthy and to protect them. Don't be like me and wait till you were, I think I was, 39 years old and my tooth broke, maybe even 41. Don't wait till your teeth break. Don't wait till your gums bleed. Take care of them now, and you will decrease your chances of getting Alzheimer's, dementia. Premature births, believe it or not, are correlated with gum disease. So it seems like a small matter. It always amazes me. I go to the dentist and they ask, Do you have insurance? I'm like, oh yeah, I've got health insurance. Oh no, we're not health insurance. Dental, it's a completely different thing. We have this idea that it's almost unrelated to our health. It's this like extra thing, or it's this superficial. But no, it is your health. I frankly think it's bizarre that it's not considered a part of basic health insurance, but it's not. And it's yet another reason why many people neglect the health of their teeth, because it's not a part of basic health insurance. So please, if you're not flossing, do something else. Get one of these little interdental brushes. According to this research, 2/3 of people do not floss on a daily basis. And again, I'm not holier than thou. I used to be one of those. But it's one of those things, if you just start doing it, you do it at the same time every day. I do it right before I go to bed. I brush my teeth. I floss first. I brush my teeth. I water pick. Actually, I water pick second, then brush my teeth. A little mouthwash, and I'm ready for bed. My teeth feel good, and my gums feel good. My breath tastes or smells good. So try to figure out how you can build that into a daily habit so that you don't have to think about it. If you're thinking, do I want to floss my teeth today? Guess what? You never will. It needs to be just an automatic part of your process. In the same way you sort of automatically take off your clothes, put on pajamas or whatever you wear to bed, you automatically do it. Figure out a way of tying it in with something that you already are doing so that you don't have to think about it. That is my advice. Well, thank you for joining me today. My name is Steve Paul. This is Filtered. It's a news show where we filter the news through the lens of communication skills and personal development, all with the goal of making you more successful in your professional life and in your personal life. Thanks. See you tomorrow.